Bueno, primero que nada, en nombre del IPP, gracias a todos por haber venido acá, a los que nos están escuchando en streaming y ustedes que han tenido la amabilidad de visitarnos. Felices de tenerlos acá. Bueno, este Masterclass que nos va a dar Diana hoy día es el inicio de una alianza que estamos haciendo con Studymilan para seguir creciendo con los proyectos educativos que tiene el IPP y Studymilan para ampliar el abanico de oportunidades para nuestros estudiantes con educación de calidad y estamos muy contentos de tener a Diana en representación de Marangoni acompañándonos con este primer evento de muchos que seguramente vendrán acá con música que nos acompaña representando Studymilan. Así que bienvenidos, bueno, están acá en su casa para lo que necesiten ahora y después del evento. Así que le dejo la palabra a Musi para que nos presente lo que viene.
Hola chicos, gracias Horacio. Hola a todos los presentes y los que se están conectando desde sus casas. Estamos muy contentos de poder ofrecer desde esta plataforma, desde el IPP, los servicios gratuitos que damos para la educación y para que amplíen sus horizontes. O sea, qué mejor que tener un acuerdo con una universidad o una institución local y con ellos ayudar a expandir los horizontes de ustedes en las carreras más innovativas que el mundo ofrece. Esta es la idea, ¿no? Este es el primer paso en el IPP y luego a sus pies el mundo de posibilidades donde pueden especializarse. Hoy día tenemos con nosotros a la directora académica de Marangoni Milán, Diana Murek. Diana tiene una experiencia impresionante. Hagan Google y encuentren todo lo que ha hecho porque realmente es increíble. Es demasiado joven para tener tanta experiencia y ha abierto y ha expandido digamos, los horizontes de Marangoni mismo. Ha sido directora de Marangoni en India, en India y también en Londres, Mumbai, y en Florencia, en Dubái, etc. Entonces nos trae no solamente su mentalidad innovativa, sino su internacionalidad. En estos días que hemos podido estar con ella, que ha dado esta masterclass mucho más corta que la de hoy, que es especialmente, digamos, extensa, hemos podido apreciar cuánto ya entiende y aprecia nuestro Perú y las particularidades de la formación que tenemos como peruanos, que en realidad tenemos mucho que ofrecer a las carreras creativas. Entonces, sin más, le damos la palabra a Diana para que esto no sea demasiado largo. Gracias y hasta la próxima. Van a haber muchas. Gracias.
Gracias.
Hello everyone. Sorry, my Spanish is not good enough to hold the whole lecture in Espanol, so I will do it in English. Thank you very much for my hosts to introduce myself, me. And yeah, today we will talk about fashion shows, because of course, being the director of education of a fashion school, this is one part of our work that we are doing. Just a quick mic check. You hear me when I'm talking right now? It's okay? Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so we will talk about fashion shows in the era of digital reproduction. In particular, as scholars, we want to see and to understand how the evolution went from fashion show once being in-person events only created for people who are industry experts. Practically once fashion shows were only seen by, and the only invitations there were to the fashion shows were actually journalists, editors and buyers. Nobody else. Nobody of us normal human beings would be able to see a fashion show. Actually, when I studied fashion design, which was in around 1993, we had to wait 3 months before we would see anything that was on the catwalk printed and in a magazine as an editorial or in books that were called like collezioni. So only 3 months after the show happened, we could have a view on what was the next color, what kind of shape of skirts were on the catwalk, what has Prada shown, what has Gucci shown, and so on. It was not possible to see it before that. So only to tell you like how different the reality of fashion was once. So we will see, we will do an analysis that of course looks into history, because it's very important for any kind of discipline that you are studying or that you are interested in. It might be art, it might be architecture, in this case is fashion design, to know something about today if you don't know the past. So we will go through the past 30 years of fashion shows, and then we will see like how has it changed from then to today, and then we will see an applied case study of a show, how it's produced today. In particular, one of Istituto Marangoni Milano, that was our last fashion show, that was in fact called Algorealismo. Next slide. So what is Algorealismo? Very interestingly, I must tell you, it's a word that doesn't exist in nature. I made it up, or me and my team, we made it up in the moment that we had the concept for our fashion show. So Algorealismo is a fashion show, and Algorealismo is also an academic paper, because yes, we work in fashion, but still being an academic institution, everything we do, even the production of a fashion show, is actually based on academic research. And in this case, we have written an academic paper. We have presented it in an academic symposium in Dubai this year, and it will be published in a book, in a peer-reviewed book next year also. So, Algorealismo, why this word? Because it unites two things that were in the heart of our research. That was how the digital and the physical coexist in a fashion show and what was its evolution. So, of course, algorithm was a placeholder for the digital aspect of it, while Realismo came from Neorealismo, which is an Italian art movement and cinema movement that in fact has as a discipline and looks into through the art of film into reality and how the reality was after the Second World War. So it's around in the 50s that this movement is there, and you might know Michelangelo Antonioni or Vittorio De Sica, who are exponents of them, and they were not only talking about in the plot about how reality was, but also the filming was done very raw, very real, very original also in that. Maybe we could even say that in this discipline, when we talk about 1995, for example, Lars von Trier, his Dogma 95 was somehow based on that. But it comes back to Italian Neorealismo, and then we combined the word Algorealismo came out. Okay, so let's talk about the research context that we in fact had in our research paper, because it was based on various scholars, philosophers, researchers, books, and so on. And I want to discuss with you the three main ones that we have analyzed when writing this paper. And one of them is, the first one is Jean Baudrillard, who wrote the book Simulacra and Simulation, and it's from 81, which is funny because in 81 we did not have cell phones, we did not have internet, and so it's funny how he already was thinking and analyzing how the world in a digital sphere could actually once become. Just because you are all so young, I must tell you that in those years, and even into the 90s, when you wanted to call somebody, you needed to physically be in one house, in a place, have a landline, and the other person you wanted to call needed also be in their house, in a landline, and only that, like that, you could communicate. It sounds crazy thinking about it today, where we have hyperconnectivity, but back then it was like this. So what is Baudrillard saying? He is actually asking himself how digital representation changes our perception of the reality, and also, is reality maybe more real once it is edited and visible and seen on a digital device? In this, maybe we can have some real life example, which would be everything that we consume on Instagram. What is more real? Like, what is more important or relevant? Us, that we look like this, or maybe us through a filter? Because still, more people will get an impression of us through our digital presence and our digital twin, if we want, than us in reality. So this is all one way. And also, is it maybe more real because more people are looking at it? And is it more real and maybe even more attractive because it looks better? It is edited, it is made into like a version of ourselves and so on. That looks better and is more interesting. And this is also the case when we analyze fashion shows. Because in a fashion show, you would have the reality, like we are here right now, physically present. There is maybe somebody walking by, maybe there is some noise going on. So a fashion show in reality would also be like that. And also maybe you would be like in the third row, fourth row, and not in the front row, how we call it in fashion. So you would not really see something, maybe the garments, who are also like very quick on the runway. You would not perceive them so well. You see them actually better online, and you see them better on the screen. However, a physical fashion show has, of course, its charm, and it's interesting, and it means you see real people, you can do networking, you see things three-dimensionally, and not like on a screen flat two-dimensionally, because that is actually a minus. Yeah. So the second philosopher that we analyzed was a German one, Walter Benjamin. Funny enough, even earlier, in 1935, he wrote an essay that was called The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. In our thought process, we could substitute mechanical by digital, of course. Does an artwork have actually, which is produced one time, has its value, is physical, diminishes in the moment where it can be reproduced? Let's just think about photography. In fact, he writes this in 1935 because that was the moment where actually photography was becoming really, really important. Then we have other artists who have brought that actually even to another level. Let's think about Andy Warhol. Many of his paintings or prints are actually produced by his assistants, not even him anymore. So what is the value on one side? But also, Walter Benjamin speaks about a more like spiritual aspect. Does something what is reproduced loses its aura, his value, his vibration, because it was supposed to be just one time in one space and not reproduced. So that was another thought. And then we have the Korean Byung-Chul Han, who is really amazing. He's a contemporary. He wrote in 2014 the book The Crisis of Narration, in which he in fact, analyzes another aspect. If you are physically in a fashion show, if we take this as an example again, you see everything from the beginning to the end, from the walk-in to the walk-out to the drinks afterwards, also in the aperitivo. You see the whole thing, and you can analyze and also have an opinion on an entire production. When you see something on the screen, or how today we see like everything in snippets, and again, edited, how much does this actually make us perceive reality differently? If I see something only for 15 seconds instead of 1 hour, the entire thing. So somebody has edited it for me and has decided what reality I consume. So, and he calls that, in fact, the crisis of narration. So these were our thoughts that we had. And now let's look at the chronological aspect of the evolution of fashion shows, and in particular the aspect of spectacularization. Because fashion shows need to be spectacular in a way, because they are a tool also of communication. So what happened, and there are 3 stages that have completely changed the world of fashion and fashion shows, which were these 3 moments. The first one is 1997. In fact, it's like such an important moment in fashion that there was last year also an exhibition in Paris in Palais Galeria that was talking about it, and in fact it was called in the 1997 the Big Bang of Fashion. And we talk about why the Big Bang, what happened there, because it is a historical moment. It changed in the first moment also the fashion shows, because before that date they were completely different, and we will see how. And then 2009, the moment the collective content creation begins with the bloggers, that is now already an outdated word, which then become influencers, that then also became an outdated word, and now we are talking about content creation. But the fashion influencer, how we know it today, as also a vehicle of communication of fashion, and then of course many other areas, was born in that time, more or less. Before, not existing. Before, the only people who had like the reign of communicating fashion were editors and journalists. Okay? And then we have from the democratization of fashion, because that was a moment that democratized really the fashion world, and everybody had like from one day to another access to everything. Even us as observers or interested part, we go from democratization to dematerialization, because that is a specific moment where also the production aspect of fashion shows completely changes, because we go into the post-pandemic era, which has done something. Okay, this is like an overview. So let's talk now in particular about the 3 stages. 1997, before that, fashion was a little bit in a crisis. Like you would know that there exist like houses like Christian Dior, Givenchy, you might have heard of them, but it was not really part of our life. Maybe you would see it slightly in a magazine, like something appearing, but it was more on a level of haute couture, so talking only to the 1%ers, let's say. And it was not a common denominator. It was not something that was discussed or shown or communicated and so on. So there was a moment in which a few very business-savvy men have thought, how? I mean, fashion could be like such a really interesting industry in which we could make so much money, but how can we make it if nobody's talking about it? So one thing happens also there. There is, in particular, Bernard Arnault, who will found and be the owner of LVMH, that group, that conglomerate. And then we have Henri-François Pinault, who will be what we know today, Kering, and would have other brands. And then they start to buy all the brands, which until then are owned only by the families, the founders, and so on. Something that we still have today, like Giorgio Armani is still owned by Giorgio Armani, Prada is still owned by Miuccia Prada. So it was a situation like that, but maybe they were already dead, the owners or the founders. So the brands were also left a little bit to themselves. So they start to buy up many, many fashion brands. LVMH has, for example, Louis Vuitton, of course, Christian Dior, Givenchy, Celine, and so on. While Kering, or before that it was called Gucci Group, has in fact Gucci Group, Yves Saint Laurent, Bottega Veneta, and Balenciaga. Okay, so they start to buy them. So okay, they have the brands, but then what? Then still nobody would talk about it, right? So 3 things need to happen. First, you need a creative director. And you need not just somebody who can make some nice outfits. You need somebody who will create not only amazing outfits, but also a spectacular communication ways, for example, in the fashion shows, that people will talk about. And maybe only in that moment we have one thing happening, which is like the birth of the creative director, which today actually we know like, oh, Valentino's creative director is Alessandro Michele, who was in Gucci before, who substituted Pierpaolo Piccioli, who is now in Balenciaga, and all these musical chairs of fashion. Once we're not even there, they started, of course, once we had like these creative directors, and they are born in 1997, around that time, for the first time. And for the first time, they are extremely young. They take them directly from the fashion schools and put them there because they know they will have the energy, they will make something spectacular and so on. Like today, if somebody becomes a creative director, they are 40 plus, if not 50 plus. Okay, so they were young and like enfants terribles, they needed to be like provocative and so on. So that happens. Then they decide, okay, enough with haute couture, it's an amazing thing, but it only speaks to the 1%. We need to speak to everybody. So we need to push ready to wear. So that happens also. And the third thing is, yes, they also want to sell ready to wear, but actually they want to sell mostly and create through the fashion shows, actually a way to talk about the brand in order to sell their most important and biggest money maker, which is, what would it be? What do fashion brands sell the most? This is the second. So it's like the last one is fashion and ready to wear. Second one would be accessories, shoes, and so on. Number one, in effect, exactly. Perfumes and cosmetics, yeah? Because there's a different price range. So, of course, the lower we go with the price range, the vaster distribution we have. In fact, the most important perfumes we know today, like number 5 of Chanel and so on, I mean, they're all related to fashion brands, yeah? So this is the strategy, and this creates actually the world how we know it today. So, but then, yeah, we need the cult designer who will be like super, super interesting and will create the most amazing shows and content that we can imagine. And these are the ones. Let's say in this period, these names become household and become really the most important people in fashion. Really a star designer. They were deciding everything from the show to the clothes, to the communication, to the logo, to how the store looked like, how the perfume should be, and everything. And we start with Gucci, Tom Ford, who then once Kering buys also Yves Saint Laurent, becomes also the creative director of Yves Saint Laurent. Then we have already here, we see like a little bit the musical chair thing we were talking, because if you look only at this 10 years, Givenchy goes from John Galliano to Alexander McQueen to Riccardo Tisci, and then to others. And then, yeah, we have various things also. For example, 2001, they launched also the menswear line of Dior, which before was not there. It was also created in that time, and so on. So these are really, really important moments. One of the most important lines here is Louis Vuitton, Marc Jacobs, because before that time, before 1997, Louis Vuitton did not have a clothing line. It was only a handbag line and valigerie, no? So you had only like luggage and bags. So, and they take by the way, just a little story, they take a designer who's Marc Jacobs, who today is like, of course, super famous. It was just like a new documentary came out just these days at the Venice Biennale Film Festival, a documentary done by one of his best friends, which is Sofia Coppola, so talking about him and his history. And the funny thing is, Bernard Arnault puts him in such an important position where he is the creative director for the first time for the brand to create the ready-to-wear line, But he takes him after he was fired from another brand in America, Perry Ellis. That's a very famous story because he has created a grunge collection for which the world was not ready, and the journalists and the fashion world did not understand it, so he loses his job. And what does Bernard Arnault, instead of saying, no, he just lost the job, it cannot be something, but he takes him in exactly for that reason, because he has done something really not imaginable and something spectacular, and they wanted exactly this thing happen in those years. And let's see, like, for example, why are these fashion shows so spectacular? And let's have a look at these four, which are really, really special, which is one of Christian Dior, then Alexander McQueen, Victor and Rolf, and Maison Martin Margiela, all for various reasons. So for sure we have a shift from fashion shows that were really dull and boring before, also because they did not have a creative director, to become something beyond clothes. The clothes, yes, they are amazing, but the spectacle that they create is really like, it's not even, they don't even talk about the clothes anymore. It's like anything else than that. The designers are not anymore, you know, like a Sarto, like a tailor that just did something. They are really artists, and they are elevated to the artist level, and they become really, really central to the brand identity. And then also, fashion becomes in that moment a cultural expression. It's not anymore seen as something, you know, that is not relevant in culture, in art, but it becomes really important, and you will see why. So John Galliano, for example, is one who takes a lot of historical reference, a lot of cultural references from other countries, in fact, and transforms them on the runway to really like a storytelling, like it's theater. Yeah, as if you would go to a theater, really. And today, by the way, it would not be possible anymore. It lives in that time frame because he was doing shows about the 20s and historical. Until then, it's fine. But then he would do also a Japanese show with women and that looked like kabuki theater, that were had the makeup like geishas. Another one maybe with inspired by the pharaohs and Egypt, and they were looking like that. Of course, today, if somebody would do a fashion show like this, they would be cancelled immediately because, of course, cultural appropriation would not allow it. So this is a good example where we see that fashion also, you know, evolves and a new thing can happen and awakens also from a few things. So, but he was doing it then, and they're all spectacular, really, the shows. And then we have Alexander McQueen, which I would recommend you watch all of his shows because they are all like madness of performance, but also in particular there are really like a provocation. Galliano was less provoking, he was just doing something beautiful. While Alexander McQueen really wanted people to think, like in this show, for example, Voss, which is very famous, he talks about mental illness. It's like the stage is created like it would be a mental asylum. The models are all representing like a mental pathology, like schizophrenia and bipolar and so on. So we see them also like wandering through the stage, and the stage design was also interesting because they were like in a glass box, but it was a mirror inside, so the models could not even see the audience outside, and so they were wandering in their own like mindset around this fashion show. I don't know if there's like a Wackelkontakt. Sorry, it's not. Ah, benissimo, grazie. He needed to come. Okay, and then we have, I don't know if you remember or know Victor and Rolf, super, super interesting. They were like really also like very performing. And in particular, this show is amazing. It's called Russian Dolls, where practically there's only one model. She's standing in one position, and the two designers, Victor and Rolf, are dressing her. And every outfit of the 30 outfits that are there are just, you know, changing sizes, and I put like one over the other until she becomes like this huge mountain of 30 outfits, all one on the top of the other. Then we have Maison Martin Margiela. No, adesso è troppo. Tutti. Now we're both doing it. Una meno. Okay. Allora, Martin Margiela, who, by the way, so in that same time, I forgot to say, we have also the birth of the supermodels. So we have Claudia Schiffer, we have Kate Moss, we have Linda Evangelista, we have all of them are really, really famous. So that helps also in the storytelling. And we don't only have super designers, we have also supermodels. So there is, but Martin Margiela, who is a genius, who is an avant-garde designer, who is like, all us fashion designers are like bowing down to his genius. He's our favorite for sure. So he didn't want to have anything to do with it. So not even himself wanted to be a star designer. So actually there exists no picture of Martin Margiela himself, even when there were interviews, of course, for the press with him. When there was a picture, there was normally like a group picture with his team, and with one seat empty that was representing him. Yeah, so that much he doesn't want it to be seen. And also models, he was absolutely not buying into the supermodel hysteria. So what he was doing was actually all the faces were covered by masks, or there was like bangs until here so that you would not see them. Or in this particular case, like so genius, he actually sent out his design team with hangers, with the clothes on the hangers. Okay? So this was all amazing, and also a moment that was really important in 1997. It started also to play around with technology. Again, I need to take my friend Alexander as an example. So Alexander McQueen here, for example, this fashion show, again, one super famous one. It's called Number 13. Shalom Haddock, a model is like on the stage, on a turntable, and two mechanical arms are actually painting all over the dress, and this dress is created. But also other things like Helmut Lang, an Austrian designer, stops like to send out also via fax. I don't know even if you know what a fax is, but the press releases, and normally when you, after the show, you would have like a lookbook like this with every look photographed, which you would give like this to the journalists and to the buyers. That also stops. For example, he is one of the first to put them on the CD-ROM and send them out to the journalists and to the buyers. Again, I mean, we don't even use CD-ROMs or USB keys, so now it would be probably on a cloud somewhere. But he starts that. So also technology starts to be something. Grazie. And also here, one point I have to say is we are still in a moment where the only people who have access to fashion shows are professionals who have like a formal education in fashion, who then also have knowledge when they write and talk about fashion, because they are really have studied it, and the buyers who have to buy it and then, you know, to put it into Bergdorf and Goodman and other stores around the world. So I put this slide always in just to say that, and everything we will see afterwards, also like the influencer strategy and having like everybody talking about fashion. The issue is also that not always you know enough to write about it or to have an opinion about it. Because there was like last year these shows, or 2 years ago, of Coperni, which is a French brand, Parisian brand, where on one side there was the two designers were like putting through a spray device and a technological development where a polymer was then hardening on the body of the model. The dress on Bella Hadid in this case, and another one where like mechanical robotic dogs were on the show, and everybody was like shouting on or crying out, what geniuses, and but we see again with our friend Alexander McQueen, nothing that has already been there. So also there's one issue with the content creation, which is a wonderful thing, but sometimes it has its limits because it cannot really talk about fashion like it should be talked about. However, in 2009, one thing happened. So what we were talking about right now was like, we are in the show, we're watching the show, or the journalists and the photographers and the buyers watching the show, and the mega spectacle is going on. Outside the show, there's nobody. No, outside the show, it's like only you get in and you get out, and that was it. So at a certain point, a few street-style photographers have the genius ideas, like instead of photographing people like in the normal street, why don't we go, because we know the calendar, we know where the show is happening, why don't we go in front of there, in front of the fashion shows during Fashion Week in the various cities, and photograph the journalists and the buyers and the few celebrities that maybe would be invited to the show, because if there are people in fashion, they will look amazing, they will have amazing clothes on, so why don't we start to document it? And that was the beginning of everything, because then actually it snowballed. Like one season it was like 3 photographers, one season it was 10, and the next one was 120. So like sometimes there were more photographers outside photographing and being influencer and creating content for their blogs at that time than people that went to the show. So they create, first of all, this is super interesting content. For the first time in life, we know actually who is Anna Wintour. Before that, you would not even know that she exists, yeah? So there you know it because they photograph all the editors, all the Anna Dello Russo, for example, editor of Vogue Japan. Before you would not know, now you know. Even the buyers and everybody who has anything to do with fashion, now you would know their faces, how they dress, what they have to say, and so on. So they not only create like amazing content creators who become stars. For example, in effect, the sartorialist Scott Schumann might be one who has really become important in that, but there were others like Garance Doré, Tommy Ton, many of them. But also the people who are working in fashion become superstars. And this is the birth, really, of influencers. And then, of course, a few seasons more, and we have like people who are like maybe interested in fashion, maybe are super beautiful, and become somebody who the brands can then also use to put their products on, to send into the show and be photographed, and they create content. So what happens here is actually that the brands who are very happy about this evolution, because instead to do paid advertisement, they have hundreds of people who create content for advertisement for them. And that's also why it's such a hit. Not only because us as voyeurs were interested in it, so that is also why in these years, Big Brother and all the reality shows, the Real Housewives of Miami, I don't know, everything, no? Where we have like this voyeuristic approach, as like really the Kardashian, no? Everything is happening. Also, this is happening for the fashion community. So it also feeds our voyeuristic intent that we are really interested in it. So it works for everybody. And also like that, it becomes a thing, and the world changes, and the democratization of fashion is there. So from seeing things inside of the show, actually the shows become very dull in those years, because everything that happens outside of the shows, which is crazy when you think about it, but it was like this. So we were consuming back then these images. And also we had like a new way of communicating, because we were not waiting anymore month and month that Vogue Italia, Vogue France, and so on comes out. But we see everything on the websites. One important one for everybody who was in fashion in that time was style.com, which now it was Condé Nast, so now it's Vogue Runway, but style.com, we were like all crazy. We could not wait, like we refresh until you saw the new images, the new backstage interviews, and everything that you wanted to know about fashion, you know this. So we were consuming fashion in this manner back then, and not anymore, you know, what was on the runway. This we said already. Wait a second. So now I would like to watch with you a little, like 5 minutes of a documentary that was made exactly in that moment because, yeah, we were all interested and we were all participating in this evolution, but also the people who were working that were like, what's going on? So they did like this little documentary, which is like super interesting. And then also it's like a visualization of everything that I was saying, because saying is one thing, seeing it is another. So I will just quickly play this clip. Sound? Okay. Shall we go back? No. That's the beauty when it's live. Something like this happens, so bear with us. Tell me when. I swear when we did the tryout before it worked. Vado? Okay. No. Okay. Vado? But it worked before. It did. It was okay, like when we tried it out before, so. Okay, tell me, what do I do?
Let's continue.
We skip it?
Yes, I'm afraid so, because there's no way to get the audio. I don't know why.
Yeah, but there is a sound. Okay, I tell you what they're saying. No, so, I mean, look at the images. They are maybe also self-explanatory. But it's like really beautiful what Tim Blanks is saying. He was the main journalist at that time for Style.com, so every interview that was important he was doing. Right now he works like for another publication that is super, super important in the fashion world, which is Business of Fashion. And he's just, you know, documenting like what is going on, that there are so many people on the street. It's like a health and safety issue because like they're really in the middle of the street and can be run over by a car and so on. So he's talking about that and also the evolution of it, because he has a little bit of an explanation why that is happening. However, this video is available online. So just research, take my picture from Garage magazine from 2013. So, and then you can see it, and then it will explain it a little bit. It's any which way, just 20 minutes long, but really, really interesting. So it talks about this, exactly what I explained to you. Just you have the visuals and also like some interviews of various people who are talking about that. And in fact, also about, like, there are a few designers who say, like, oh, okay, I'm a new designer, so for me it's like really important that I can go there and show my fashion. So also when I don't have the means, because we are always talking about the big brands, but that was also at that time a way of promoting like a startup where when you were just starting and you were going there, you were photographed by the sartorialist, it was published, it was something with what you could do promotion for your brand. So have a look at it. I swear to you, it's very, very interesting. And then okay, from the democratization of fashion, we go to the dematerialization. So of course we know this thing happened. The fashion shows outside, everybody's blogger, everybody's influencer. We have Chiara Ferragni, we have the Kardashians, we have everything going on. So that means like the communication is done by the people in part, yeah? What happens in the pandemic? The thing is, it means like from one day to another, we don't have an audience anymore. The 200, 300, 500 people who were in your fashion show and could create content for you, each one of them with millions and millions of followers, from one moment to another, you don't have that anymore. So what do? That is an issue. So in any case, very, very important was then, apologies. It was super important to create something, since it will be consumed not in person, but only for the screen, for the first time, only for the screen. It becomes really, really important that it becomes the spectacularization, goes into the production that is perfect for the consumption on the screen. Okay, do you see already now in this picture here, for example, that there is a difference to the other shows that we were seeing maybe before? It's like, apologies. It's like really something that is amazing for the screen. So, sorry. For example, sorry, I'm a little bit sick also because it's so cold here in Lima. Thank you. So for example, it was a big thing in that moment to do like monochromatic fashion shows. So you see already here like one color, so strong, like it's perfect on the screen, it will pop. And also here, like everybody has like a little take on the fashion film that they are producing. For example, Prada here very, very cleverly actually puts like this monochrome color. Okay, check one. Second, plays a little bit with the thing. Yeah, we are humanless, but we have everything is on camera. So we put even in the production and the set design, we put cameras and also screens all together. So it was like a little bit an attempt to make everything self-explanatory. Another way of making a spectacular show came to mind to Jacques Mus, who's like really a genius, because he thought like, okay, I have to do social distancing. So we see like, for example, in this wheat field, we see like the people sitting like in the wheat, and then we have the models going through. Then there was also the version in the lavender field. There were like various versions of this, where it becomes super spectacular because you could work also with drones who fly over the fields. And then there were like the super, super images on the screen again that were working then. Gucci, Aria, this fashion show is also very famous because they were playing with the thing that there are no phones anymore who are taking like in the front row and from the audience pictures, and no flashlights. So they have created this wall of flashlights that's taking like the pictures to simulate all the influencers, all the people that are actually not there. So another very clever idea. And here we have Valentino, who actually worked for this collection with Pantone to create a special pink color. The creative director is Pier Paolo Piccioli, so it becomes PP Pink, which are his 3 letters. And there also follows a global campaign of sending the merchandise in that pink to every influencer home, that like it becomes the year of pink. Like really, we were so over it after a while because everything was pink on the screen. But amazing advertisement campaign and promotion campaign and so on. So the augmented fashion shows or the dematerialized fashion shows become really this eye catcher. And it cannot go back. And everything that we were saying here today, you cannot take back anything. So it's just an evolution, really, because once you got to a stage, it always remains, no? So it remained like this. And then there were like examples of maybe even small brands like Unrealage, who did something really, really clever. As they were thinking in their concept, oh, the world is like turned around, you know, had over feet, you know, it's like tipsy-turvy, it's like completely weird, and, you know, nothing makes sense anymore. And since we cannot have people, so it's not even physical, let's play around with the physical space, which is like, of course, a fashion show with a runway, but the models any which way, we are not real, it's a fashion film, so they can walk on the floor and they can also walk on the ceiling. So they do that really, but look what they do with the print, the polka dots. They play with the gravity thing and even with the hair that goes around. I have also like a little film. Well, we cannot hear the music, but we can see maybe the first two outfits, which is like super interesting to see how they have done and how they represented really what the fashion shows were in that moment, which were without people, no? So even it's like impressive to see like all these empty chairs. And then, yes, the first outfit comes on, and this is like super normal, everything. And then we have the gravity one with the hair falling down and the polka dots that are following the gravity. So actually also things that cost little money to do, no? So also that changed a little bit because when you do a production for fashion shows, and then, for example, if a fashion show becomes a fashion film, you can reduce the cost really a lot, because also you can use only one model if you want to, because I mean, you don't have a sequence really of 60 models that have to go out one after another. So fashion film was actually something also really clever, and also especially for small brands with a smaller budget. Then other things, of course, start also the immersiveness idea. So we have here a Balenciaga show in which the ceiling is LED screens that produce one image. In this case, it's water, and the runway was actually a water pool. So it was then, of course, mirroring everything down. So it became like more this immersive thing. You see even like the models that they're walking in water, no? And here you see also some other shows. Like you see that nothing is normal, nothing. The production value has become really with the focus of being qualitative so well done that it's really appealing on the screen. And even if we're back to the fashion shows that are in real life experience, we have never gone back from the productions. Now shows are really produced in a crazy, crazy, amazing way, and consumable for on the screen. So where we can enjoy it really, really a lot on the screen. So some conclusions of what we have seen before going to the next point is, yes, so we see like this fragmented, we see amazing thing on the screens, but they're all over edited. We don't see anything that is really real, or, you know, like in a time frame also that makes sense, but it's everything edited. The reality is edited for us. We are manipulated actually to see and consume something that we don't have any power over. So, and also many, because it was an academic paper, so we did also like interviews with people because we had to do a qualitative research. So many influencers, for example, have said they prefer to just sit in the show and film and look after what they have to edit, because any which way the models walk so fast, I cannot be so quickly, and I any which way have to concentrate on what I'm filming, that they prefer actually everything that's on the screen, because exactly therefore, because they can edit it and they can put their own music and their own content. While, for example, fashion designers were like, no, We want to see the real clothes. We want to see like the movement of the paillette and the pleats of a skirt that only in a real person you can see. So the flatness also of the screen has changed our perception of the clothes, because we don't really see them in movement, and we don't see their real aura and vibration maybe. So it's a little bit a conundrum now where we will go from here. What will be the next step? For sure, things like in the metaverse, the fashion shows, that was a little bit a gimmick. We tried it out a little bit, but we don't have the computing power, let's say, to make that really a thing. So the next step will be a surprise. We will see like what AI will do, if we really will go through digital twins and digital models, if that will be appealing for us, or actually the overexposure of technology, because we know, we're consuming so much technology. I mean, I dare every single one of you to see like the screen time that your phone is telling you how much you were on there, how scary that is. So we have our value of something, we give it really when we see it in the flat screen, and that's how we observe the world and have an opinion of the world. And so there's so much digital stuff going on, and Midjourney produced things and AI produced things, that there's already evidence that there is a strong wish to go to primitive aesthetics in general, but also more experiential fashion in itself that has something to do, like now coffee shop done by a brand are more appealing than a show seen on the screen. So something that's an experience has becoming a little bit more relevant. So that might also be because always when we have like something too much from one side, it is a natural thing. That's also how trends work, that we are pushed somehow to see something that's the opposite. And now to the last point, which is how do you produce a fashion show? Because we were talking so much about the production value, I wanted to show you like how we produced, for example, our last one that was in fact algorealismo. So these are the various steps that you go through. You need a concept and an idea, of course. And especially here, it will be interesting to see, like, yeah, okay, we have this concept of algorealismo. What is real? What is on the screen? But how do you communicate that in a fashion show? How do you produce that? That was actually like then also our problem, or what we had to solve. So you go concept, of course, then to the production design. In fact, how do you make it real or understandable? Then venue selection, for example, is very important because it is a physical event, a fashion show. And then we go to model casting, something that maybe somebody who's not in fashion would think like, okay, models, you take a bunch of beautiful people with the right measurements. Yes, basically yes. But casting, for example, is a has a huge importance in the production of a fashion show, because what you're doing is like you try to give to every single outfit to make it as beautiful as possible and as relevant in itself. So that means if we have like a rock and roll outfit, you might want somebody who has a little bit maybe harsher lines, or has a lot of tattoos or something like that. Or if you have a very innocent collection, you maybe want somebody who is a little bit more childlike with big eyes and short hair or something like that. So because you look at every single outfit and how you can enhance this with the model and with the hair and makeup then also. So casting is really important, because you have to know exactly the outfits that you have, to know in every single one to put the right one that will enhance this one outfit. Then styling and fitting, of course, hair and makeup planning, and then what do you do on the day? Because the tricky thing of a show is you don't have 3, 4, 5 days to prepare, because you take a venue. That venue cost maybe a day $50,000. You have to be in and out within a day. So also the production from creating the set to everybody out and having outside a drink, everything happens within 12 hours, and you don't have more. It's really crazy. So it's like everything you have to plan is like, it needs also to be like executed really by the second kind of. Okay, so let's see a little bit the various steps. So concept and vision, the concept is clear. What we had is like to bring somehow together reality and screens, and you are not doing it yourself. It's not like me is producing a show. I'm overseeing it, but I'm not doing it. So you need a production company. So when you have to explain a concept to a production company, you tell them the idea, but then they will, through their professionality, show you all the various ways how it can be really produced and how it can become real. So, and when you communicate with them, what you need is also like mood boards, which whoever is like creative here knows, you know, it's a good way of communicating an idea, a feeling, and so on. So we had like these various images where we see always something real and which is confronting itself to something on the screen. And then you tell the production company, you give them ideas. You say like, okay, I want a lot of screens in my fashion show, but how do we do them? Are they all like on one thing? Are they done like Prada did, or are they, you know, like some kind of a construction? In the end, we went with that one that you see up there. Nevertheless, we had the renders of all of them. Then you have, also, I don't know what happened there. Once you have the venue also, you have to decide the venue structure, because you can go on a catwalk, you can go straight forth and back, yeah? That is one way to do it, or you go like around it. So we did this because, of course, our structure needed to be like in the middle with all the screens, and the model would go around it, because our idea was that to explain and to feel like our concept, you needed to see in the same moment the model and their screen version, which was not the live filming of the show, but it was other content we have created with the outfits that I will show you. So that was the idea, to make it real. Then you decide, where do the photographers go, where does the audience sit, where's the backstage, and so on. And then you have to, of course, decide a venue. And in this case, we wanted this art installation with the screens on it, and it should look like an art gallery. So we decided something a little bit with a rougher art gallery style feeling, a little bit industrial, because we knew like that all the screens would have like all the electric connections lying around, so it needed to be like a little bit industrial. And then, in fact, there was another problem. Okay, we have the show and it will be fine. But there needs to go something on the screen, which we did not want it to be the same thing, because we wanted to give the illusion that like reality is different actually on the screen than in reality. So we had to take all the outfits, put them in another day of pre-production shooting, and create videos and images that then would be post-produced into these little clips that we see here. Go. So this is one outfit that would be in a show, and then, you know, we created these things, and this would have been then on the screen together with the name of the student, so everybody would know. So the new student, that is another one. And that, then, we will never have sound, actually. No. There's no way to get the sound back. And then also we needed like something that is called walk in and walk out in our show, in a show, because these two contents we could not show when the people were arriving, because if not we would spoil the collections. So we needed to create like an abstract version of it, where we used also some keywords of our fashion show, of our research, to create this abstract thing that then also became like the invitation that went on Instagram and so on. And we had like this other content also. And then we were talking about the casting already, that they really need to be like very special. And then once you know all the models that you have, in this case we had 60 outfits. In a show with 60 outfits, the best thing would be you have 60 models. But budget is also a thing. So if you can do it with less, it's better. And some models would change outfit if there's enough room from one exit to the next one. You can actually make them change outfits. And so we had 40 outfits and 40 models. And once you have them, you decide like, okay, which face, which body goes where. And also models have different heights. So you put like all the ones that are in, around 175 in one group, the other ones who are 179 go in another group, because you want to avoid to have like this fisharmonica going on in the show. So there are various aspects that you put together in the casting. And then you do the styling and the fitting. The styling is, of course, what kind of socks, shoes, accessories, if you put that jacket with that pants or these with that. So you have to all decide all that. For that also you will have a stylist with you. And the other one is to do the fittings, because you have like a standard outfits that you do with a standard size, but every model have like a longer bust, more breast, more waistline, a bigger one, smaller one, and so on. So you have to fit all the outfits exactly on that one model that on that day will wear it, because it needs to be the most perfect version of that outfit combined with model possible. So that's why fittings are the most important things. So do first castings and then fittings. There are two really important moments. Of course, hair and makeup need to work in general with the theme and have a concept. You don't do like with every model with whatever hair, but it has to have like a theme in general. But then also on the day you decide actually with every single model what version you make of this. Because you decide, for example, to do frizzy flying hair, which is this one. That is like just the way how you want the texture. So you can make frizzy, fuzzy hair with short hair, with long hair, with medium hair, and so on. So all the models that would be there can then work with one thing. You cannot do like one specific look, because it's too complicated. You have too many models. And then on the day, actually at 6 o'clock in the morning, you take all the outfits, you put them in the night before. You put them already, you know, you package that in, because then on the day of the show at 6 o'clock in the morning, you go to the venue, which you have only on that day. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, you start to create the backstage. So you have all the various places where the models would go, where you give them, then each one of them their space, where they will be and where they will be dressed. And then on a certain point, the model arrived, and when the model arrived already, the hair and makeup teams were there. Very often they are sponsors. So you have the team of L'Oreal, the team of Kiko Milano, whatever, and then you have like one artist who is the boss of the hair and the boss of the makeup. So the makeup artist will then, for example, explain to the whole team of the sponsor how exactly do the makeup that we have discussed, and they learn it like in that moment, and then they have 3 hours to do it, and that's it. So it's something also very fast, a production of a show that happened like really on that day, in that minute. Everybody needs to be in their perfect performance in what they're doing for life. Like if it's a hair artist or makeup artist or a dresser, because then in the backstage you have also the people who dress it, every model and so on. So a lot of people in the backstage. Normally it's like around 200 people, because then your sponsor also sends like 10 people with a cameraman to actually produce content for their social media. So it's like a lot of people are there. And then you have to do the technical run-through, because what light will you have when the people come in? What will be on the screens when the people come in? So here's also what, and then the technical part also, okay, you have all the video cameras, because it all will go in streaming, and therefore then, you know, how do the screens look on the screen when I film them? What light do I have to have with the model, with the pasta, when they come down the runway? So I have to have all the various tests that are going on, that everything needs to be perfect. Then you need like the DJ knowing, like the sound person knowing like exactly which music you have in the walk-in, which music when you understand everybody that the show starts, which music with the first student with his outfits, which music with the second one. So you have to try everything out. And here we had also like the thing with the screens. So we had like the sound guy who was doing everything live, and the video guy who also needed to do everything live. So it was actually not that simple of production. And that also you do only during the day. Then the last thing you do is actually to have a walkthrough with the models, because you have to also you have to tell them how to walk. Because one is slouchy, one is very fast, one is very short, one goes more to the back, one more to the front, and so on. And also you have to try out exactly the way how they have to walk, exactly the moment when they turn around, because there is one focus point that the photographer will have for the main pictures. So if they have to go like this in a square, you have really to make sure that everybody understands to turn around here. Because they are models, you know, they are young, they are like, yeah, whatever, I just walk down. No? But when they walk down like this and make a curve, then they have ruined that shot. So you have actually to do, it sounds so simple, but even those simple things you have to do. And the general rehearsal, for example, another things to know, you'd never do that with the clothes on, because the clothes you put on the runway only in the second they go out. 10 minutes, 20 minutes earlier, they have the outfit on, not before, because you cannot ruin it. You cannot risk to ruin it with the makeup that they're having on and so on. But what you have to do in a rehearsal for a show, you have to put the shoes on them, because they have to get a feeling of, especially the girls with the heels, of how are they working, do I need maybe a sole inside because I'm slipping out of them, is the floor too slippery or not, all this kind of thing. So here we have like this little rehearsal moment where you see like first is like the walk-in and it's all going and it's quite dark. Then we have like the boo 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 that everybody knows, like, okay, and that was also with sound, that the show is starting. And then all lights out, technical lights in, the one that go on the show on the models. First model comes out. And here you do it like 3 or 4 times until everybody understands what they have to do. Go faster, go slower, don't slouch, whatever you have to tell them, you do it then in this moment. And I'm really, really sorry that we don't have sound, because now I wanted to show you like a little clip of backstage, and I show it to you. But the music is also very beautiful, because the music also, we did a lot of things with AI for this show, of course, for obvious reasons of the theme, and also the voice-over and the sound. There's like a singing voice, which is really, really cool. Sounds a little bit like Nico of Velvet Underground, so like Berlin under subcultural sound, let's say. And this voice is not real, it's an AI voice generated by that. And here you see like a few moments of that. And also we did a perfume that is called Algo Realismo, and that was also created by AI and had like a slightly metallic smell. And that was given to all the guests that were there. And yeah, I'm really sorry that you can't hear the sound, but if you again here put into Google Algo Realismo, the show will come out. It's streamed on YouTube. And that was it. And one pride moment was that was our show. We started the Fashion Week because we're always showing in Istituto Marangoni Milano our fashion show in the beginning of the Fashion Week. So we had first day 1, and then on 2 days after, Prada showed their show, and we loved the coincidence that their show, like in this season, was all based on the theme of algorithm. We felt like really, really realized, and we had the same idea than Prada. So that was a moment of pride, and that's it. And yeah, sorry for the technical issues, because the sound of some were really interesting also. So.
De esta Masterclass, el momento que pueden aprovechar realmente de una persona tan calificada para aclararles dudas, curiosidades, etc.
Where you showed us the slide where it was like a bunch of images of the people like on the street with the outfits, you said that there was a website that was before. I don't know if a website like that exists now where we can like look at those images now, or is in the past?
No, oh my God. This member of the audience was just asking. I just repeat for the audio for who is online. The images that I shot of the street bloggers, and everybody was on the street with all these amazing outfits on and so on. So that website was style.com. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore. We all would love to have that website back. But you can have a look at the street style blogs that still exist that were photographing all that. Oh my God, now I have to remember because it's also so many years. So it's the Sartorialist for sure, Jack and Jill. But when you watch this little film, Take My Picture, from 2013, Garage Band, they talk about a few of these blogs. So search the blogs, search the people who were actually doing it, or put in Google also bloggers in 2009. You will find the original blogs, and then you will find all these images. And Garance Doré, I can write you down later how it's written. And yeah, so there you can see it. Style.com, and unfortunately it doesn't exist anymore, and they have taken down the page, so we cannot even do this archaeologic work of seeing what has been in the past. Thank you. Please.
I don't know if this is maybe a little confidential, but how do you finance all the logistics for the show and the book, or is the Marangoni finance?
How do I find the logistic for, how do you
finance?
Finance, oh, you put it in your budget of your, yeah. You have to put it in, you know, every show has, every company has a budget. You have like, for everything, this is like communication budget actually. No, so because we live with these images, you can actually do like a communication with them. Go to the next, you have the next year's show. These are images that you will use in various occasions and print them out, maybe even in a catalog or so on. So yeah, you have to put it into your budget. So from, I don't know how much, you know, our EBITDA is, there is a slice that goes into communication, and of the communication slice that goes a specific number then into the fashion show. Yeah, but it's a lot of money that you have to find. You can do a few things, a few costs you can have less of, as I was saying, for example, the hair and makeup teams, because there are like 20 people for hair and 20 people for makeup who have to, you know, prepare the models. This is like 40 people that you have to pay. If you find the sponsor, that is already paid for. So there are a few things that you can afterwards, normally for the drinks afterwards, for the aperitivo, when the show is over and you cater, you know, have your catering, you always find like an alcohol or a soft drink sponsor that takes care of that part. So sponsoring is a good idea, yeah.
First of all, thank you for the masterclass. It was great.
Thank you.
So my question is, this was the final project for students, right? So how are you able to like make everything fit within the algorealismo subject?
We don't.
Okay.
Because we work like on two tiers, two levels. Since it's a graduate show, this is actually a great question also. Since it's a graduate show, and in our case it's like 10 students who show their work, their final work of the school, which must be completely individual and personal and decided by the student. So we don't give them a theme, because it's like the biggest work and creativity they will do before going to a job, where then they will work for somebody else normally and so on. So it's the last hooray creatively then very often that they can do, and also, you know, that is how they will find a job. So it must be the full creativity of a student. So there is no theme for the student. They do whatever they want, and you have seen also like the collection in themselves were very different between themselves. So what is then algorealismo in the production? It's actually the thing that unites them as one thing in which none of them actually fits in.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just like one theme you have to have for a show, but it's like more for the production, for the visuals, you know, everything like that. But it's the one that one thing that is the same for everything and then holds together the event.
The theme is always created by you guys, or the students also participate in the theme?
No, because because we have to start both things on the same moment. Because the students work on their collections and we work on the production. It might be that some students have been involved because maybe the research was done with some students. But no, this is normally our thing. Maybe in the future we will do actually more student-led also productions. A few schools do it actually, ours, also Marangoni, when they are smaller schools, like Shanghai, for example, does that, I know. But they have also like, they don't have 2,500 students where you know, you cannot choose some and others include them in the production. So it's a little bit different to manage as managing the situation. So yeah. Thank you. Yes.
I was wondering, when you say that you created like a scent, a perfume, it was, I know, helped by the AI, but how do you like produce it, like with a laboratory or?
Yes, there was another sponsor. Yeah, we had a sponsor, Simrise, which is like a production place that produces, has their own noses, so a specialist on creating something. They have their own production places. They produce perfumes for Dolce & Gabbana, for Dior, and so on. So we have partnered up with them. And we have just said, okay, this is the theme. We would like to use AI. We would like to do that. And, you know, it should be a metallic scent, since it would maybe recall the idea of a robot or computer or something like that. No? So these were all input. And then that perfume house actually made it for us. It was not that in the school.
How far was it, like, the concept with, like, AI and also, like, materializing with the laboratory? There was like so far away, like the
like time-wise?
no, like the
final product.
yeah,
From
like
the idea.
from the idea, and like, I mean, probably AI made like, you should try this and that.
Well, of course, it's not that you in everything. It's not that even like for the set design, you know, of the art sculpture that was in the show. There were like 10 designs before we really hit the, you know, the spot that was perfect. Also the Algorealismo perfume, we did like, we were sending from Paris back and forth from Milan and Paris, like the tryouts. It was maybe 5 tryouts until we got really like this scent, and then we produced that one. So it takes us always like trial and error and everything until you have everything like that's perfect. Also with the hair, you try 5 different hairstyles and so on until you understand, yeah, I want this one and that is actually looking good. Because, you know, it's always like in a creative process, like an idea is something wonderful, but then when you translate it in reality, then, you know, it takes shape, and then it's like, ah, yeah, no, my idea was amazing, but in real life it's terrible, so let's try something else, no? So there's always like a development stage. Please. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Well, my question is for you, what are the most important skills that young students must develop to succeed in fashion industry?
Okay. What are the most important skills in the fashion industry that you should develop as a young professional coming into the business? First of all, you really need like everything, like depends what you want to do in fashion and in the fashion industry, because there are hundreds of jobs. Let's say fashion designer. Or do you want to try something else? Shall we talk about fashion design?
More in business or marketing, yeah, merchandising.
Or merchandising. You see, there are so many, like the amazing thing is like when you talk about or think about professionals and the fashion industry, you always like think there's only fashion designer, but you always say marketing, but that could also be like the PR part or the production part. Merchandising is like another part of the fashion design, because the fashion designer, for example, even the creative director cannot just design whatever they want. You have a merchandiser actually who will tell you, of that shirt last year in South America, we have not sold one thing. We need something for South America. So you have to do a lightweight, this shape, this color, that works well in South America because he has the research, he has done. Yeah, so they tell you then, you know, maybe the designer wants to do only, you know, a certain type of shirts, but now they have to do it because something else that the merchandiser will tell them. So it is very complex. So in any case, regarding like specific skill set, you need to know in fashion, I think the most important thing is because I think like the fashion design world is so particular because it's so emotional, driven. So you have to understand really how the fashion industry in itself works. It's not that you do like communication just as a communication skill set development with everything that you need to know. How do you make a media strategy and so on. But you have to know about fashion. That's the most, you need to know the history. You need to know the most successful case histories maybe in the history of fashion, you know, what worked in communication, what not, and so on. So you need to know everything relevant to fashion because it's not maybe like other businesses that, you know, if you sell a car or you sell coffee, it's the same thing because it's the business part. And in this particular industry, you need to know exactly all the history and everything that's also emotional, for example. Because if you think about a CEO in fashion, so like a business person, do you remember, everybody remembers Alessandro Michele and his fashion? He was like appointed in 2015 creative director of Gucci. And then Gucci became like a madhouse of creativity and like of expression. And like there were outfits out there you would not believe that really somebody has imagined them, no? So creative madness. It's still a business person, the CEO, who has Marco Bizzarri, by the way, it's his name. It's a business person who has put complete madness on the, at the wheel of Gucci because he knew that in this moment our culture in fashion needed exactly that to make succeed Gucci in that moment. So even a business person, even a communication person, you want to work in business in fashion, you have to know fashion. And nothing else, you know, not nothing, you know, like other type of culture. So you really need to know how a system works in fashion because it's like a too weird of an industry. Like 1 year something works, the next one not, and it's so for the most weird reasons because it's so magic driven and desire creation driven that you really need to know desire and desire related to fashion. So fashion history, for example, is a great way to start, and fashion sociology. Like there are many writers and scholars who have written about the sociology of fashion, anthropology of fashion, like Roland Barthes is like one of the main ones. And so yeah, studying that already helps because you psychology of fashion you really need to understand. Thank you. Please. Hello.
First, thank you for the whole masterclass.
Thank you.
Great. Yes, as you've been talking about fashion history, I find great the whole exposition because I always have been connecting everything of how the fashion industry is working right now from all of this time, like from centuries ago. Like, for example, here in Lima, like they always take the connection about what they are wearing in Europe and everything, and how we expose all of the clothes there in the theaters as well, and that's your fashion show at that time. But my thing here was, how do you think this will get to the people? This will get closer to the people by the time we get more technology, or this will get them like even more apart, like even like not that close enough? Like
What is this? I don't know what is the subject of the sentence. This will become what this.
I mean about the whole fashion industry, about the work that they do for the fashion shows, if these will get closer to the people in the emotional side, or this will get the people like even more far away from the whole fashion world?
Right now, actually, the AI is not the issue. The technology is not the issue. Actually, what gets people closer or far away. There is an issue with technology and with the fast communication that we have an issue with microtrends right now. The trends are created so fast you cannot even produce it. It's already over. I don't know, what was this terrible thing, the Labubu? Like when it was there, then it was away already. It was the most horrible thing that could be there. You know, like microtrends they're actually killing the whole thing, because it's like, and that has to do with screen. Like you see it one day on TikTok, and then the next day, you know, you want it, and the third day you want something else again. So that thing is a little bit disturbing, and only in that technology is a problem maybe, because like the communication has become so fast that not even production can go after that. But also it's a good thing, because again, in fashion especially, everything that is like too much on one thing, let's say like in this case, the pace that is so fast, because everything is communicated so fast, is starting to become a lot. So actually there is then the counter trend that there is a movement of anti-fashion right now that is really, really strong, where it's really like, let's consume less. Nobody wants to buy anymore. If you want to buy something, you maybe buy it like reused and redone, but you know, I rather want an experience than a product. We are there right now, which this moment has brought us to. Which, by the way, is only because when we talk about fashion history, is so important to study, because that has already happened so many times. Like, for example, in the 90s, which is an era of anti-fashion, because we have minimalism there, which is like, in terms of anti-fashion, not engaging with decoration, taking away, less is more, so we have that. Then we have the Japanese deconstructivism that actually destroys clothes, put them together differently, puts them inside out, you know, with Rai Kawakubo, Comme des Garçons, or Martin Margiela. And we have grunge, which is like, really, let me put on the most slouchy and horrible garments together, like in a weird way. So all these are expressions of anti-fashion. And when do they happen? In the 90s, exactly after the 80s, where we have a massification of fashion. Because in the 80s, one thing started, is like that we had like the biggest explosion of brands. Really, that was like Levi's and the United Colors of Benetton and Esprit, and you know, like there were Marco Polo, I don't know, there were so many brands, and even the ready-to-wear brands were starting to make second lines. There was Moschino jeans, Moschino cheap and chic, you know, like even the ready-to-wear houses had like 5 brands and lines. So there was like a creation of fashion that was so overwhelming in the 80s that it was overconsumption of fashion that then had as a reaction anti-fashion in the 90s, and models needed to be like really, you know, without makeup, really gray and brownish colors everywhere. So yeah, so there is always a response to that. And in any case, studying fashion history is the coolest thing. You will not realize like how many things have already happened 1,000 times over and over. Because also fashion is like a funny thing. Everybody thinks like fashion is like so forward thinking because we create clothes that and show on the show that will be will be then in the store in a half a year. So it looks like we're doing something for the future. But if you really get into fashion, really start to understand it, because you're studying also the culture and the reasons behind things, you will see that fashion is the most nostalgic industry in the world. That rather looks backwards than forwards. Okay, so have a look at that. I hope I answered your question. Okay. Okay, something else? Ah, no. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Este ha sido el momento más importante de Studymilan Week con la Masterclass de Diana del Instituto Marangoni, pero no se ha acabado. Tenemos todavía un encuentro el día viernes en la atelier Corillo para las que quieran hacer más preguntas acerca de todas las universidades que representamos. Obviamente el Instituto Marangoni Marangoni, cómo matricularse, cómo terminando el IPP pueden venir a hacer cursos especializados muy atinentes a lo que han estudiado acá. Entonces las esperamos. ¿Dónde está Eli con la dirección? En el atelier Morillo, el viernes a las 4 de la tarde.
Okay.
¿Cuál es la dirección de tu atelier?
Hola chicas, soy Eli. Estamos súper cerquita en San Isidro, me encanta que hayan venido, muchas caritas conocidas. Es una oportunidad perfecta el viernes para que tengan one-on-one, pregunten de todo. Y no se olviden de inscribirse porque el link está en el perfil de Studymilan. Los cupos, como ven, son limitados, estoy súper feliz que haya venido mucha gente. Y bueno, Studymilan les va a ayudar. Importante recalcar 5 solo 1 para que puedan ver todas las posibilidades que tienen, el portafolio de lo que pueden hacer en Europa